Contemporary society is facing major environmental problems such as air pollution, resource depletion, overuse of the private automobile, inefficient transportation systems, energy shortages, and overpopulation. Traditionally, we have attempted to deal with these problems with a physical technology, and in the process have altered the environment to satisfy our desires. We want to travel so far, so fast. We want to be a certain temperature. We want to eat all sorts of food, and we want to have appliances that make our home life easier. Now we are at a point where we might have to consider a different approach, the use of behavioral technology, in addition to the physical technological approach, to try to alleviate some of these environmental problems. Dr. Peter Everett of the Pennsylvania State University is working in the area of behavioral change and its applications in the larger social setting.
You know, after all, it is human behavior that is a major component. People are choosing to turn their thermostat up. People are choosing to buy non-biodegradable items in stores, such as plastic. So we can really see the validity in taking an environmental problem that most people perceive of as a physical technical problem, running out of coal, running out of oil, and turning that around in part as a behavioral problem. People are choosing this lifestyle, choosing this sort of behavior. Therefore, we might appropriately deal with these environmental problems from a behavior perspective in addition to physical technology. And I would like to suggest that we consider the use of applied learning theory for a couple reasons. Applied learning theory has been very successful in clinical, educational, and correctional settings in behavior change strategies, and that's often what we're talking about when we're addressing environmental problems. And applied learning theory is very objective. It's coherent, understandable by, and easily understandable by many people. To really see how applied learning theory might help analyze and suggest changes that will help us out of some of our environmental problems, we should maybe concentrate on a particular environmental problem. And I would like to choose the overuse of the private automobile or inefficient, environmentally degrading modes of transportation. And I choose transportation primarily because it is so pervasively linked to so many of our other environmental problems. It's estimated that 30 to 40% of our fossil fuels goes to run our transportation systems. It's related to resource depletion. In the production of cars, Detroit has tried to produce 10 million cars a year, used on the average for only 3 years. It's very closely linked to our pollution levels in urban areas and so forth. So we can really see why, if we can address transportation problems, we might simultaneously deal with many other environmental problems. What I'm suggesting is that we not impose this technology upon society for transportation planning. I'm suggesting that the people are already using this technology. But it's often done by default. For example, the highway engineer builds a highway thinking he is accommodating a need to drive cars. But by building the highway 8 lanes wide, he's making car driving very pleasant and in turn reinforcing car driving and making that behavior much stronger than it was in the past.
Well, I'm not sure that engineers even understand the term behavior in the same sense as you do. I think most planners would see themselves as people who would change traffic patterns, not behavior patterns. But the real facts of life are that the disciplines aren't in the planning process now. The planners are traditional planners, and they have all the biases and hang-ups that come with a long tradition of doing things pretty much on a trend projection basis. And transportation simply is looked at too often as a single function without any relation to the rest of the world. Simply provide better transportation. That's been the name of the game.
The same type of development pattern or standards affect us in many ways. Affect us in the parking ratios and the parking indexes, and also in road standards. For a cul-de-sac street, a small residential street of, say, 9 or 8 homes, we have to provide a closed section road with a 29-foot width. Now that's incredible to think of a need ratio for 9 homes or 10 homes even on 29 foot of pavement, especially when you have to provide the off-street parking anyway. And that costs the developer money, that costs the home buyer money, and that's a waste of resources, of natural resources. That's petroleum, that's a byproduct that makes that road. And that's something that money and that effort could be spent somewhere else to get more benefit.
Now, there's other kinds of planning, too. There are the people who realize they're planning for behaviors, but do it very poorly. A nice example might be the Three Rivers Stadium in Pittsburgh. Here the planners are planning a many-acred parking lot for cars, essentially right adjacent to the downtown area. They're planning this parking lot to accommodate the cars for weekend football games and so forth. But clearly, they're not planning this environment in a systems context. They're not thinking what it's doing to the facilitation of automobile use in the whole context of the city or over the whole week. By having this large parking facility, they're only asking more cars to come downtown and commute by car to the central Pittsburgh area. They're essentially attracting cars. They were planning for behaviors on the weekend, but in the long run, they're planning an environment that's facilitating car use to a central city area over the entire week. Columbia, Maryland is probably one of the most innovative new towns in our country. It was established in around the mid-60s. But because of past ordinances, they're limited to essentially poor behavior planning.
And you have to work within the set county ordinances. And those ordinances are such that a retail facility has to have 5 cars per 1,000 square feet. I'm not saying that's wrong or right. I'm just saying that you have to work within those limits because the county that governs us has seen what's happened when the local agencies haven't been foresighted enough. And lo and behold, all you have is parking all over the streets and old homes and old historical parts of the city being torn down for parking lots, for garages. And yet they believe in Columbus is a better way, but they can't jeopardize the future of this land area on the hope that people will buy a no automobile society. Yet if it comes around to that, if we can slowly convert people, we can always tear up the parking lots and build more buildings and more facilities.
The third kind of existing behavior planning that goes on besides default planning and poor behavior planning is planning done by private individuals for self-interest. Now this is certainly legitimate. Anyone can open a pizza stand, for example, and give people coupons to come in and buy a pizza there. But they are planning, according to a reinforcement paradigm, behaviors. They're reinforcing you to buy pizzas in their store. This is quite pervasive. There's this behavior planning by the free enterprise system for you to buy cars. The rebate system of February 1975, this last year, is a perfect example. General Motors, Ford Motor Corporation, and so forth, gave people a $500 check for buying a car. They're reinforcing your behavior. Using an applied learning theory perspective to understand and deal with transportation problems can be divided into 2 major components. I think the first thing we might like to do is analyze current transportation problems. Remember, the major tenet of applied learning theory is the concept of reinforcement. Pleasant consequences increase behaviors, and aversive consequences decrease behaviors. So how has the existing environment been programmed to do these sorts of things? If we look at two kinds of behaviors, car driving and use of other modes of transportation, I think we can clearly see how planners of the environment have gone out of their way to build in very reinforcing events for private car use. They've given us short travel time, high prestige, choice of travel routes, choice of travel time, choice of arrival time. Costs are deferred. We pay for everything for the car with a credit card. We have privacy, comfort, air conditioning, music, and we can carry all our items with us, grocery bags, bicycles, packages, and so forth in the car. And the second thing we would like to do, after we have analyzed how the environment to date has been behaviorally programmed to maintain different sorts of transportation behaviors, I think we would like to go in and suggest how applied learning theory might contribute to changing transportation behaviors that are more favorable towards the environment. In Columbia, Maryland, we have a very nice example of how one might reinforce other transportation modes than the private car through physical design. Columbia has a pathway system which interconnects all areas of the city essentially by a parkway system or a park system behind all houses.
It's tough to try and change people overnight. It's tough to say that you will not use your car, you will use the path, you will use the transportation system in Columbia or any place else. You have to, I think, work it through phases, through an evolution. It's not a rebirth overnight. It can't be. We have to sell to the people that are coming out of other parts of the country, other environments, which have functioned in this traditional manner. And so you can't just say either choose Columbia or go away, because one of the goals was to make a profit with private capital, so these things would continue. So there'd be more of this and there'd be less of the stripped development, of the endless sprawl. And that was an important function as well as trying to make a better environment and not to abuse the land. When we design each neighborhood or village, it's land planned and analyzed. And topography plays an important part of where the open space goes and therefore where the paths go. The paths are meant, and the open spaces are meant to go from a desired point
Morning, how you doing?
to a home,
Good.
and vice versa.
Pretty day, isn't it? All right.
Also, we try to make that path system choose areas which has a great deal of amenity, because the open space is found behind most of the homes where people can easily access the open space and then go to the convenience centers or the elementary school, which is the basic concept in Columbia, and then from there to the village center.
Hey, Glenn, can you go downtown on this trail?
Yes, certainly you can. Take you about 12 minutes.
Really?
By car, about 15 minutes. It's more direct.
So it's a lot shorter by car?
No, it's a lot shorter by bicycle.
But I think the advantages here was that there's an obvious thought given to it, considerable thought given to it. That was one of the basic pieces that fit into the original concept, which is the concept is still being held to right now, that a person has the opportunity to have these links from his home to the neighborhood centers for recreation, for community activities, whatever, to the village centers for his service, his daily needs, his weekly needs, literally to the town center, so he could literally walk to work or the employment centers.
Well, that's a pretty drive.
Yes, certainly.
You live on down the street here?
Oh, yes. A little distance away from here.
It's all there. Now, whether or not a person uses it, you can provide for it, but you can't force them to use it. Hopefully, we've put them in the right places, that they will be utilized, but you can't can't guarantee it until people see the advantage, the true advantage, or recognize it. And I think it's happening. I think people do use the pass.
I think that one of the nicest paradigms to understand why behaviors towards the environment from individuals don't really favor the environment might be something I'd like to call the fallacy of composition. And fallacy of composition means, or says, what is true of the parts is not necessarily true of the whole, or what is true of the whole is not necessarily true of the parts. Now, the analogy to reinforcement and, let's say, for example, car driving is this. Car driving to you as an individual is very efficient, maybe prestigious. You have a large route selection, you can carry goods with you, and it's probably the best way for you as an individual to commute or transport yourself in current contemporary society. But all individuals doing this together sum to very inappropriate consequences for society. So what are appropriate consequences, reinforcers for you, are not perpetuating appropriate consequences for all people lumped together.
This is Georgetown in Washington, D.C., and you can see that this is a pretty good example of where the city is really built for people, but this street in particular, where it has many nice little shops, and it's primarily for pedestrians. The pedestrians are really accosted by the noise and the pollution and the horns. If any street should be closed off for a pedestrian mall, I would think this would be it. We can see the bicycle riders are caught in between the cars. The people in the cars can't get out of their cars. They're all just sitting here. Pedestrians have to weave their way in between the cars. The sidewalk is very narrow. The majority of the people are clearly walking, yet the majority of the space is devoted to the car. It certainly seems it might be more efficient to have maybe peripheral parking areas to a city than have bikeways and pedestrian ways and subways and mass transit get people into centers like this. This sign shows the entrance to the Shirley Highway, which is an experiment outside of Washington, D.C., where buses and carpoolers get to use a center express lane. Often it's on a busy day, you can see that cars with single passengers jammed up and not moving at all, and buses and the four-passenger cars whizzing by on the center express lanes. So this is a direct example of how you can design the physical environment to facilitate such behaviors as bus riding and carpooling. And this is one of the major things applied learning theory can offer, is the analysis of existing or planned environmental changes or design from a behavior perspective. Here at the Pennsylvania State University, we are addressing behavioral applications to urban transportation problems, sort of on a two-phased attack. And the first phase, or first aspect of our research, is to analyze what actual transit systems are doing both negatively and positively towards increasing mass transportation behavior.
Let's see what's on the radio.
Look, over there. Is it a bird?
Is it a train?
It's Pat Train. Faster than a speeding bullet. More powerful than a locomotive. Able to leap long distances, Pittsburgh to McKeesport in just 25 minutes. It's Pat Train.
Kimosabe, me thinks we should ride the Pat Train from McKeesport.
Why's that, Tonto, faithful Indian friend?
Me did some checking, Kimosabe. It takes just 25 minutes on Pat Train, 45 minutes by car, and 3 hours by silver.
Well then, let's take the Pat Train. Here, conductor, have a silver bullet. Hi-ho, Pat Train! Away!
Pat's new commuter rail service making stops in McKeesport, Versailles, Braddock, and Hazelwood.
Hi-ho, Pat Train! Away!
We're looking at systems such as Pittsburgh, for example, where they knowingly or not have instituted a reinforcement procedure. Their wild card bus is very much behavioristic.
Mr. Morrow, our executive director, was the person who initially thought of the idea of the wild card. His concept was that a person rode every day and needed to receive some kind of recognition as being a regular rider. We were doing things for the off-peak rider or the weekend rider. The nature of the costing of mass transit is such that the full burden must fall on the rush hour rider, so we could not give him a significantly reduced fare, but we wanted to let him know that we knew he was there. So every day on a different rush hour bus, some busload of riders receive a free ride, not the same people every day.
We're analyzing information systems and mass transit systems. How does a stimulus environment tell people how to use mass transit? Is it confusing or not? Does it scare them? Does it tell them they will be able to get home?
The challenge is there to the American transit industry to look at Europe and look at itself and see what it could do and what it can learn from the other cities. A person in Europe can go from one city to another and be able to understand and use the system without understanding the language. And over here we have a problem of very small signs and unclear graphics. We just put the extra special bus on the road. It's an ordinary bus up to a point, and then at that point it changes. It has very large signs with 12-inch letters. It has 6 signs instead of 2 signs. It has a new type of painting on the outside. It has a map and a list of routes inside the bus of where the bus operates. It has conversational seats where people sit in a couple of instances facing each other. It has a different passenger signal that the passenger can let the driver know that he wants to get off. All of this basically testing out things which are very common in Europe. So we're taking not only this bus, but a whole bus route, the Carrick bus line, and we're going to convert that into the extra special bus route. And the whole line will receive new signs at every stop. There'll be new timetables. There'll be maps of the bus route along the way. In other words, an extra special bus and an extra special information system about how to use that bus on that line.
The other phase of our research involves very experimental research on the campus bus system at this university. And what we are trying to do here is to understand what sort of reinforcers will get people to board and ride a bus, how frequent these reinforcers should be given out, in other words, a schedule of reinforcement, what sort of ridership increases we can get, how we might phase out the reinforcers and let more natural reinforcers take over so the behavior is maintained over time, so we don't have to constantly say, keep giving people 25 cents for boarding a bus or a token worth goods and services at a local merchant's. And in the final aspect of the research here on campus is to evolve it into an economically viable format so that we don't have to have essentially research funds to maintain it over the long run. We're trying to develop mechanisms now where people board a bus, get tokens worth goods and services at local merchants, and the merchants will in turn reimburse or pay for the costs of these tokens, which are exchanged at their establishment. We feel that merchants can support such a procedure because it brings increased business and traffic into their store. And simultaneously, we will increase bus ridership.
Well, I think in the downtown areas there are certainly reasons for having, as a distributor, a collector system, a circulator system, a free fare. Basically, there is no cost to the transit system. The vehicles are circulating around downtown. And if you're able to contribute to the health of the downtown, then that contributes to the overall health of transit. So we endorse that, and we'd like to have that here. I think that we view the whole thing, to express it from a management point of view, from a systems approach, that our system is an entire system. And we're building up an entire environment for how people feel about transit, how they're responding to it. So that has many little components. And if the wild card makes a person feel good on a certain day, it's the same thing that a department store does with a continuous series of promotions or little giveaways, or even a food store that might be giving free samples on a certain day. It's the same kind of a thing to get people interested in your product and to make them aware of the fact that you're aware that they use it.
A sale, a discount, a coupon system in the private enterprise system are all reinforcement paradigms. So it's quite pervasive. Behavior planning is very pervasive. It's either done by default, people not knowing it, poor planning, designing things very inappropriately according to behavior theory, but still designing behaviors, and trying to design behaviors, and by the free enterprise system. So behavior technology or applied learning theory is not something awesome. It's not something that we apply. It's going on anyway. So all I'm suggesting is we understand it better and make more rational choices for the betterment of living conditions and appropriate behaviors towards the environment.